Hello, thank you for listening. This is the near death experience of Halil, and this experience occurred on March 26, 2017, and is documented on May 8th of 2017. And Halil is from Turkey, maybe in Turkey. Open quote. I was picking up my daughter from school. While I was walking there, I dropped to the floor. I was having a heart attack. I was walking in a pretty populous area, so there were many people around. However, no one seemed to do anything. A few younger boys walked by and just watched as I was lying on the ground. A young girl, who was maybe 5 years old, noticed me since I had collapsed right outside of her apartment complex. She asked me if I was all right, but I couldn't say anything anymore. She went back inside. Everything went black. I will never be able to remember how long it was that I could not see anything, but all of a sudden I realized my eyes were open. There was one thing that didn't make sense. Why was I floating? I was in the same spot that I had collapsed, but I was slightly higher up. Suddenly I heard sirens and looked down. I could see an ambulance with people coming out. They were putting me on a stretcher. I heard one man say, "This man has no chance of survival. He has been here without any help for nearly an hour." The other man said, "I'm sure he is already dead. I didn't realize it was this bad." I could see everything so clearly. I wasn't feeling any pain and actually felt very comfortable. However, I was a bit stressed at the thought of my daughter and my wife, who would be stressed to find out that I had died. I didn't know where my daughter was, but I knew that my wife's work was not too far, so I went to her workplace. I went to her office, but she wasn't there. I saw that her computer screen was on and that she had been looking at an Istanbul real estate page with apartments and houses for sale. I didn't think much of it at the time, but this did have significance later on in my story. I became curious. What would happen if I continued to float up? I began to go up, up, and up. Finally, I could see the entire city of Samsun. As I started to rise, I could see the Black Sea and the southern tip of Ukraine, which is geographically close to Samsun. Eventually, I could see all of Turkey and Ukraine, then all of Eurasia. I kept going up so high that I was eventually able to view the whole Earth from outer space. Suddenly, I saw total black. I couldn't see anything. I started to panic and yelled, "Hello!" I didn't get a response. Then I called out to a higher power, and suddenly I saw an immense light. I was able to float toward that light. As I entered, I realized that I was getting sucked into some vortex. Then I was in a cave or a tunnel. I could see the same light, but it was at the end of this tunnel. I started to float towards that light, and I came closer and closer. As I got to the end, with a door. This door had typical Islamic ornamentation on it. The door opened, and it looked absolutely dark. However, this was only for a few seconds. Afterwards, I had an entire life review from when I was in my mother's womb to the present day. I was shown many life events that I had forgotten about. Some of them made me feel happy, while others filled me with guilt, sadness, sorrow, and so on. Next, I saw a nice meadow with green grass that was greener than I could ever imagine or seen. It had flowers that had a color that I cannot describe. I went inside a house and saw a young man who was sitting. As soon as he saw me, he stood up and ran to me. He looked similar to my father, but I could tell it was not him as I had seen photos of him when he was in his early 20s. This man was visually younger than I was. I asked him who he was. He told me that he was my grandfather. Ever since I had known him, he was in a wheelchair. I was very surprised. He asked me to say hi to my grandmother, his wife. Then he asked me if I wanted to meet my deceased father. We walked for about 5 minutes. In the distance, I saw my father. When we got closer, he welcomed me with open arms. He told me that I had been a good person, but that I needed to make sure my daughter would never lose her religion. My grandfather, father, and myself were walking along a field, and we saw a beautiful mosque in the distance. As we got closer, I could feel my walking become more and more difficult. It felt as though I gained all this extra weight. They entered, but I could not. I could feel myself being pulled back. I heard an authoritative voice say, "You shall not enter. You have not finished your life. When you have completed your life and continued to be a good person, you will earn your place here." Suddenly, I saw complete darkness. Then I opened my eyes and realized I was in a hospital bed with my wife and daughter around me crying. Apparently, I was out for longer than most cardiac arrest patients, and it was a miracle that I had survived. I felt pain, but I was not tired or drowsy. Visiting hours had been over, and my wife and daughter had to go home. After I had recovered, I revealed exactly what happened. My wife had a hard time believing it at first, but I told her about the fact that I went to her office and saw the Istanbul real estate apartment and house website on at her desk. She was shocked. She said that day her boss had offered her a job in Istanbul, and she was wondering what kinds of apartments and houses exist there if she planned to relocate for her job. She said she never looked at that site before and thought that there was no way I could have known that information unless I had been there. I hadn't been to her office in over 2 months. The experience was timeless and vivid. End quote. Wow. There are so many interesting points in this one. Thank you for sharing, Halil. The fact that he wanted to go to his wife's office, I haven't read that many times before. You don't really, I'm going to go see this person or that person consciously doing so. I thought that was very interesting. And then he became curious. It's funny how many times people relate that in their stories. I was curious about that, or I was curious about those, or those twinkling stars. I was curious about that. So he became curious. And then, of course, off he went, and then into the void until he called out to a higher power. And suddenly the light. We've seen that before as well. And then we, of course, come to find out that his religion is Islamic, and he sees quite a bit of Islamic religious decorations, ornamentations on the door of the mosque, and then, of course, his father telling him to make sure that his daughter doesn't lose her faith, and I would assume her faith would be Islamic. And then that authoritative voice saying, "Go back. You're not ready." So interesting. Lots of questions in my mind. There are some questions here from Halil's mind. So let's see. Heart attack. Did you feel separated from your body? Answer, yes. My wife's computer at her office and the people around me during the experience, I clearly left my body and existed outside of it. And the office computer thing, that pretty good too. Interesting that that's pretty good confirmation here. And we're reading that. We're listening to that. So, question, did time seem to speed up or slow down? Answer, there was no such thing as time as we know on Earth. Comparing your vision, the vision was much more crisp and made more sense. Question, did you pass into or through a tunnel? Answer, yes, it was a dark tunnel with a glowing yellowish, whitish light at the end. Question, did you encounter or become aware of any deceased or alive beings? Answer, yes, Grandpa and Dad. Question, did you see an unearthly light? Answer, yes, this was the light before and during the tunnel. I believe it was Allah. Question, did you seem to enter some other unearthly world? Answer, it was so perfect. I saw colors of flowers that I had never seen before. I saw my grandfather in his youth as well as my father. And wasn't that great that his grandfather was so young? And wasn't it interesting that his grandfather was right there, but they had to walk 5 minutes to meet his dad? Question, what emotions did you feel during the experience? Answer, I felt fear, happiness, stress, comfort, all in one. Mostly it was peaceful, though. I felt incredible joy when I met my dad and grandpa. Question, did you suddenly seem to understand everything? Answer, I had no questions as I knew everything. My father, as well as the voice, told me the purpose of life is to be good and faithful. Question, did scenes from your past come back to you? Answer, I remembered many past events. I saw my whole life from the time of birth to my wedding to my daughter's birthday to today. To my daughter's birth to today. Question, did scenes from the future come to you? Answer, during my life review, I saw an image of my daughter as an adult and being a model. I also saw her future children. Question, did you reach a boundary or limiting physical structure? Answer, yes. I could not enter the mosque with my father and grandfather. I was being pulled back. Question, did you come to a border of point of no return? It's not really. It's the same answer. Question, what importance did you place on your religious/spiritual life prior to your experience? Answer, greatly important to me. Question, what was your religion prior to your experience? Answer, Muslim, very religious. Question, have your religious practices changed since your experience? Answer, no. Question, what importance do you place on your religious/spiritual life after your experience? Answer, greatly important to me. What is your religion now? Answer, Muslim, still very religious. Question, did your experience include features consistent with your earthly belief? Answer, I saw religious imagery that was consistent with what I believe, but the afterlife did look different than what I would have guessed beforehand. Question, did you seem to encounter a mystical being or presence or hear an unidentifiable voice? Answer, I saw a yellowish white light and many glimpses of life, which I believe were God and angels. Question, did you encounter or become aware of any beings who previously lived on earth who are described by name and religion? Answer, uncertain. I saw a light, which I believe may have been Muhammad. Question, during your experience, did you gain information about the existence of God? Yes, I know He, capital H, exists. I heard His voice and saw religious imagery significant with my faith. Question, did you gain special knowledge or information about your purpose? Yes, I knew everything and more than I can even remember. Question, did you believe that our earthly lives are meaningful and significant prior to your experience? Probably meaningful and significant. Did you gain information about the meaning of life? Answer, yes, it was to be a good person and follow religion. Question, do you believe in an afterlife after your experience? Answer, an afterlife definitely exists. Yes, I saw people who died, and I know they are living in peace now. That's wonderful. Question, during your experience, did you gain information about life's difficulties, challenges, and hardships? Answer, yes. I was told by my granddad that everyone is placed somewhere, and some have it worse than others, but everyone will be equal at the end of it all as long as they are good people. Question, what life changes occurred in your life after your experience? Answer, slight changes in my life. I feel happier and more positive. Question, was the experience difficult to express in words? Answer, yes, I gave the best detail I could, and that still doesn't express it adequately. Yeah, and remembering this really was less than 2 months, really a month and 2 weeks, maybe even under that. before when it happened to when he is describing it here. And there's a couple other questions here, but then, we read a lot of NDEs, and this is really one of the first or second maybe ones that I've seen or heard have here that are from Turkey or the Muslim faith. That's very interesting as well. The most of them are from Western countries or Western faiths. And yes, these are English websites and such, but they also are international. And I think that this one in particular has many translations in many languages, but predominantly English, Western style places. I don't think it can all be explained away by the fact that these websites maybe originated in the United States, let's say. I don't know. Just a question. Question. Do you have any psychic, non-ordinary, or other special gifts after your experience that you did not have before the experience? Answer, yes. I was able to predict things that have come true. For example, sports games, and I have placed bets and won. All right, I might do that too. Question. Are there one or several parts of your experience that are especially meaningful or significant to you? Answer, meeting my family and learning about what lies ahead. Question. Have you ever shared this experience with others? Answer, yes. I told my nurses the day of the experience and my wife and daughter the same week. I told my friends within the month. Everyone other than my wife believed it. And after everyone other than my wife believed it. And after I told her my verified OBE, she believed it too. Question. Did you have any knowledge of near-death experience prior to your experience? Answer, no. Question. What did you believe about the reality of your experience shortly after it happened? Answer. Experience was definitely real. I was 100% real and nothing can change my mind. I was there and I know. End quote. End story. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Halil, again, and have a great day.